hello. I'm Jessica Sage. I'm the marketing director here at Wire, and I'm just going to kick us off with a few slides before I hand things over to the Netquest team. And before we get started, I do want to thank Wire's corporate donors. Our corporate donors make Wire programming possible on an operational level, and we simply could not do all that we do without them. A big thank you to Verizon, Cint, Dynata, Fieldwork, Forsta, Innovate MR, Kantar, LinkedIn, Protege, Quantelope, and Quest Mindshare for your continued support. I also want to briefly thank our association and media partners for helping to spread the word about today's event. If you are not yet a part of the Wire community and are interested in learning more about what we do, I invite you to visit womeninresearch.org after today's session, join our mailing list, and you'll get invites to all of our upcoming events and programming. And of course, we want to give a big thank you to the Netquest team for partnering with us on this webinar session. If you would like to host your own Wire Plus webinar, you can reach out to me at jessica@womeninresearch.org after today's session. And finally, we are using Zoom webinars today. There's just a couple of buttons you'll need to know about throughout today's session. You can use the chat box to say hello. I'm already seeing some of you say hello to the hosts and panelists. You can let us know if there's any technical issues there in the chat box. Please use the Q&A box to send questions to the panel. You can do that at any point during the session. And then after the presentation, we'll be going through those Q&A questions that come in through the Q&A box. That is all for now. If you have to log off a little bit early, that's okay. We'll send you a recording of the session to your inbox tomorrow. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to the Netquest team.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to be here. So let me introduce myself. And this is Estrada. I'm account manager at Netquest. And well, we're here. I'm here with Merce Riva, and we will be talking about a really interesting topic. It's a project that we run together with A&E, and we were looking forward to respond how the exposure of an advertising campaign can be related to a consumer behavior using a single data source. So for that, my teammate Merce will be telling you how did it manage to get that. So all yours, Merce.
So hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Merce, Business Development Manager at Netquest. So as my colleague has mentioned, we're going to talk about the advertising world, audience insights, and also one single source of audience view. So if I ask you, how many of you truly know the impact that your advertising has? Probably you could say, well, we actually know, we actually have our tools. But one thing is campaign exposure, and the other thing is the impact that it has. So how many of them are interested in your brand, or are looking something at your website, or just they want to buy the product, right? So this is the main challenge, and we're going to talk about it. So from now onwards, I just want that you picture yourself in a world that ads are just not a shot in the dark. So it's just more than that. It's about consumer behavior, deep insights. So we're going to have a look at it. So drawing the cause effect that there's between the advertising and consumer behavior. So that's the challenge. The thing is that each response and each action from each person is due to a stimuli. The thing that's really difficult to measure. And that's what we are going to do. The thing is, any platform can shout any type of advertising, but how you can handle it. So yeah, if it's online advertising, you can track clicks, you can track views, whatever. If it's offline advertising, it's a little bit more difficult. Of course, people have data. People know which ads are in between programs, are in between commercials, in between movies, but it only gives us the campaign reach, like how many people actually watch this. But we want more than that, especially to create our strategy. So here, there's one thing that A&E was thinking about. Okay, so there are a couple of issues. The first issue is data. Data comes from all over the place, right? So both online, YouTube, Google. So I'm sure that all the marketing departments that you have know about it. But also then linear players, which are the trustworthy partners that all of us have. The thing is that each data, each methodology has its own language, which what we need to do is combine this data, this internal data that companies have, and external data. and create something common that we can understand better, something less messy. So it's something that A&E was working and they did it. So perfect. But still, there's a missing piece in this puzzle. What about attribution? So we're talking about stimuli, we're talking about responses, about the correlation. So it doesn't help a lot. So now we're gonna focus about offline attribution. So perfect, online and digital things, online advertising, it's easier to measure, as I said before, through clicks, views. But offline attribution is something that since years ago, they used to use QR codes, so they can track people scanning the QR codes and telephone numbers. If someone has WhatsApp me and asked for information or has called about the product, single URLs created specifically for this campaign, or even coupon codes, and then they can track if they redeem them or not. But it's not enough. So yeah, offline advertising has this information. They can track the commercials that they put on their channels, whatever. But what else should we have, right? What else that gives us the key for this attribution between the stimuli and response, which is the goal of our presentation and what we want to focus on. So here we have the conversion funnel. I think that probably you would say, okay, Marcel, like I'm super familiarized with that. I don't want to know about that. My managers are super into like how to convert all these potential clients with actual clients. So first we have the attention phase. And you know, it's just about eye-catching ads that people show interest in it, and that's all. Then we have interest. So maybe you can just give a brief information about how the product works, where you can find it. And then it's about creating this stock of flames of willingness, of people really willing to buy something. And here it's which is more difficult, right? So how to create willingness, how to do the call to action, and also we're gonna work on conversion rates. So one thing is that people watch a commercial, but what about the other things? So what about going to your website? What about actively searching something? What about buying something? And the most difficult part is about retention rate. I just want that this person keeps believing in my brand, keeps like coming to me, right? So which is the solution for that? And even though we have all this data mess thing solved, we need the distribution thing. So we need the campaign rate reach and also the conversion rates. So we understand the problem, but now we're going to talk about potential solutions, which doesn't mean that it's the one that we ended up implemented for A&E. So first of all, we need to think about the foundation, which is 100% profile panel. Of course, each of us has their trustworthy partners. We need to keep in mind it's important the ISO certificate, the GDPR compliance, and all this. Okay, data is reliable. But once we have the service and the people, the targeted people, then we need to have the passive metering, which means clickstream, app usage, history, which is really important to have conversion rates from historical data and future data. Then audio matching. So we really want to know what they're listening to and when they're exposed to these audio or content files. Then questionnaires, either pre or post, depend on the specs of each project. Geolocation, so where they are heading to, where they were. And then any other data collection methodology, like online communities, focus groups, in-depth interviews. So that's all that we have on the table. Of course, when we're talking about behavioral data, we need the permissions of people. The first thing is like A&E came to us and say, okay, I'm familiar with the questionnaires. That's awesome that you can have 100% profile panel, but give me examples about behavioral data. So why is it useful, right? So here, we're going to talk about passive metering, which is more related to clickstream, and audio matching. So people have a people meter, and you will say, what's a people meter? So normally, this data is measured by household. In this case, we are measuring it by individual. So we can track the clickstream navigation, the app usage, the conversions rate, like talking about historical data and also future data. So that's what we can have with our panelists. Then audio matching. Audio matching with this meter, it means that it can record the environmental sound. And then we also have audio files and content files that, in this case, A&E shared with us. We see if there's a match, and voila, if there's a match, we can actually see that they were exposed to this campaign. The good thing is that it's cross-media and cross-device, and it's real data in that specific time, which is something which make it more unique compared to other tools. And it detects like either audio or video content. Then after that, you can decide pre or post survey. So now you're like, okay, I have like a lot of information. So I know about questionnaires, I know a little bit more about clickstream, about audio matching, but what did you end up doing, Merce? So here you have the three phases that at the end we were focusing on. So the first one was profiling and pre-survey. So we wanted to know more about our target. So we're just not going to go through the Gen Pop panel. So we have the study in Mexico. So they need to watch A&E. And also we're going to analyze the channels that our client A&E wants. So we have a high profile panel, which means that we know the media habits, which timeframes they used to, or normally they watch A&E channels, which attitudes they have. At the end of the day, we need to take into account that each category, we need to have like different strategies. So they behave differently. So having a profiling panel is really important. In the second phase, we have data collection. So it was a pilot study. So that's why we had 2,200 people from Mexico. And from those people, as I mentioned before, we track the clickstream navigation, the app usage, but also the audio matching with their permission. So we considered 30 days in total because we thought that it was appropriate for this category. And then we had the results. Then the third phase was the most difficult part, which was the data matching. Okay, so we're analyzing 4 channels, which was A&E, History Channel 1, History Channel 2, and Lifetime. We had everything, each content files, audio files, video files. And then we had all the information gathered from our analysts in Mexico. And then with this, we saw if there was a match, and we could connect all the dots. So which was the main goal? Had one single source of attribution model. So we were able to connect the dots, to connect the campaign rate, reach, exposure, online behavior through clickstream navigation, audio matching, user profile, and we had the specific target for this category. Which category? We're going to talk now when we talk about the results and the big numbers. So some general findings: 18% were effectively exposed to A&E content during that period. 23% were visiting the website, so at least they had a reaction. And then 4% did like several searches and purchases in the clickstream. Okay, we have all this information. So it was, well, due to privacy reasons, we can talk about the client, but it was for a well-known online travel agency, which means that we already know which kind of target probably is more attracted to these ads. That we had some suspicions because at the end of the day, with a pre-survey, we can just saw which interest and which people were more interested in these specific ads. Also, one of the cool things is that this single source attribution model could let us know about the campaign reach, but also conversion rates, which was one of our main goals. So which reactions have those people and how many did they purchase, right? Then you'll tell me, okay, so this is for the travel industry, but what about the financial industry, or what about the automotive industry? Maybe here you have to consider different variables. Maybe you will need a bigger sample size, or maybe you need more than 30 days to track all this behavioral data. Or maybe the marketing funnel is just different. So that's why each study, each target, and I would say each profile has a different methodology. And depends on that, from those potential solutions that we saw before, we could choose. So what? At the end of the day, of course, there are things to improve. Technology is evolving as time goes by, but at least we have one single source of attribution model. So now it's like there's no a lot of messy data. We can have like better advertising strategy. And also like nowadays, media is consumed in so many different ways that it's awesome to have everything in one place, right? And it's also good because if you ask yourself, wow, like some time ago, we relied purely and solely with the answers that people provide, which means that we only had the clear data. But what about real data? What about the observed data? So the combination of both makes us like feel this say and do gap, which is one of the main goals also too, especially for the advertising world. So we do have the campaign reach, we have the conversion rates, but then which questions do we have for the future? So with all this data, what will happen? So we can feed AI models that maybe can let us have better advertising strategies. Maybe we'll think about pricing strategies, and maybe everything is going to be different from now onwards, right? But which is true is that now we have another way to measure media success, also other performance trackers, and also other strategies. And maybe in a few years, we will be talking about other ways to do that. So it's amazing. And I hope that we can get better on that and that it could be like, yeah, maybe awake some intrinsic motivation to all of us to keep investing in ideas to promote this consumer behavior and also this model. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'm going to provide the email down there. And yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions.
Okay, there's a question in here. If this methodology can be implemented for specific client brand targets, let me answer that. Since we have more than 300 variables or profiling variables, we can identify not only the demographics of our panelists, but also consumption habits. For example, specific brands of, I don't know, whiskey, tequila, beer, or what kind of bank products do you have. So we can identify the target. However, since the base of panelists that have the audio matching technology installed is, for example, in Mexico, 2,000 people, it will depend on the effectiveness of the advertising in order to detect how many people can be impacted to the advertising. So we can do it. However, it's important to determine the base, the amount of panelists that will be available for study. So yes, we can, but I sincerely prefer like a really general population target in order to have like a bigger number of people who's going to be studied. Lori says what audio matching is. Okay, audio matching is a cross-media solution in order to measure the impact of people to an advertising campaign. What do we do here is ask to our panelists to give us permission to, through their phones, to know what sounds are being exposed in order to determine if a panelist has been impacted or not to a campaign. I don't know if I'm being clear on that, Lori, or... Another question is, how do I manage to collect different type of data from a single source? Okay. Basically, what we do is determine which panelists have the biggest engagement in order to ask them to give us permission to track their web behavior, or also their audio, like digital audio, obviously, and so that we are able to provide 360 degrees view of the panels, of the consumption habits. Sounds as in the media. Yes, Lori. What we do is to track all the sounds that are being impacted. But what we basically do is to convert them in fingerprint in order to match them with our library sounds. And that's what we do is basically what Shazam does whenever we are trying to determine the music we're listening to. That's what we do. Our customers provide you the advertising that they want to measure, and what we do is transform that sound into a digital fingerprint that we're going to be looking at, and that's how we determine if a people has been exposed or not to a sound, to a advertisement, or to a channel. There's another question, like how does your methodology differentiates from Cantor or Nielsen? In here, the main difference is that those companies provide you different types of data from different sources. In here, what we're providing is that one single source, one panelist in this case, it's going to provide you the exposure to certain campaigns, and also we complement it with a questionnaire in order to provide, okay, I know how many times you have been exposed to certain creativity, and also I'm gonna question you if you remember it, if you like it, etc. So this is one passive cross-media solution. I'm looking for another question. Okay. What's the value proposition of audio matching? That's similar to what I was mentioning, because this measurement focuses on the individual. So all the data it's going to be gathered from an individual in order to provide like this 360 degrees point of view. So instead of picking pieces from different data sources, we provide you only one data source, but in different levels. I'm not sure if there are any more questions. If not, you can keep sending it, and we can contact you in order to dip in this topic, because I'm looking for more questions, but I'm not seeing it. Are the panelists aware of the data you're collecting from them? Yeah, actually, every time we invite them to share those types of data, clickstream or audio matching, we are asking for their permission, so they're aware. There's not like hidden cookies or anything like that. It's with all their consentment. Well, I don't know if there are any more questions. If not, I don't know, Merced, but they can send the questions and we can contact them in order to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just put my email, so just send me like which question you have, and also like I'm gonna share the presentation because I know that someone was talking about sharing the presentation, so there's not an issue. But yeah, just drop me a line and we'll definitely be more than happy to answer. Okay, perfect. So if that's everything, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that, well, you have learned more things and that you have like more energy and yeah, like more willingness to find other ways for this case and also for future cases in advertising. Thank you so much.